Welcome to Arkintel. Argentina is stuck in a loop and it's eating itself alive. Inflation here isn't a shock. It's not even news. It's just how things work. Prices double, the peso collapses, savings vanished overnight, and no one's surprised because it all happened before, again and again. In the last 80 years, Argentina has defaulted on its national debt 9 times. In 2023, inflation exploded past 211%, the worst in over 3 decades. Shops update prices daily. Workers spend their paychecks the moment they arrive, just to stay ahead of the currency's free fall. This isn't just economic mismanagement, it's become muscle memory. A century ago, Argentina was one of the richest nations on earth. Today, it's known as the inflation capital of the world. So what went wrong? Why can't Argentina escape this cycle? And is there any way out that doesn't end in collapse? It's easy to forget now, but in the early 20th century, Argentina was booming. In 1913, it ranked among the top 10 wealthiest countries per capita, ahead of France, Germany, and Italy. Buenos Aires was called the Paris of South America, and not without reason. The economy was thriving, driven by exports of beef, wheat, and other agricultural goods. European immigrants flooded in, drawn by opportunity and rising prosperity. But this growth was built on a fragile model. Argentina was overly reliant on global demand for its exports and on foreign capital. When the Great Depression hit in the 1930s, demand collapsed and Argentina's economy crashed hard. In response, the government turned inward, ramping up protectionism, handing out subsidies, and increasing public spending. To cover these expenses, they printed money. That decision would define everything that followed. Inflation began to creep in, and every time a crisis hit, the solution was the same: spend more and print more. Over time, inflation wasn't just a problem. By 1989, Argentina had spiraled into full-scale hyperinflation. Prices were rising so fast, over 3,000% in a single year. That money became worthless within days. People were paid in cash and raced to spend it before it's lost value. It was economic chaos, but the deeper tragedy was this: even after all that, the country still did not fix its underlying issues. When printing money stopped working, Argentina turned to something else: borrowing. Debt became the new strategy. Governments took loans from foreign investors, the IMF, and anyone willing to lend. And for a while, it worked. In the 1990s, Argentina pegged its currency to the US dollar. Inflation dropped, and people started to believe the worst was over. But behind the scenes, the same habits continued. Spending remained high, and debt piled up. In 2001, the illusion shattered. Argentina defaulted on more than $100 billion in debt, the largest sovereign default in world history at the time. The government froze bank accounts, protests exploded in the streets, and the economy shrank by 11% in a single year. 5 presidents came and went in just 2 weeks. It was a complete collapse. Despite all the collapses and resets, Argentina never truly escaped the cycle. In 2020, it defaulted for the 9th time, once again triggering negotiations with creditors and the IMF. But most Argentinians don't follow debt headlines. They feel the crisis every time they buy groceries or try to save for the future. What matters more is the daily reality: a currency they can't trust and a system they have learned to work around, not rely on. What really matters to them is that they can't trust their own money. Most people convert their pesos into US dollar the moment they are paid. Businesses set prices using the blue collar, the unofficial black market exchange rate, which trades nearly twice as high as the government's official rate. In Argentina, the financial system is no longer something you rely on. it's something you try to work around. In 2023, a new face entered the scene: Javier Milei. He wasn't a typical politician. He was a libertarian economist, TV personality, and self-described anarcho-capitalist. His campaign rallies featured him waving a literal chainsaw, promising to slash the size of the government and, most famously, to shut down the central bank entirely. Milei's most controversial idea was dollarization, abandoning the peso completely and adopting the US dollar as legal tender. The logic was simple. If you take away the government's ability to print money, you take away its ability to create inflation. But the risks are enormous. Giving up your currency means giving up control. Argentina would no longer be able to adjust interest rates or devalue its currency during a crisis. And the country doesn't currently hold enough US dollar reserves to make the transition cleanly. Still, Milei moved fast. He slashed subsidies, froze public sector wages, and promised massive deregulation. The reaction was swift. Mass protests erupted across the country, especially from unions and lower income groups hit hardest by the cuts. Inflation, to Milei's credit, has slowed from 211% at the end of 2023 to around 118% in 2024. Still one of the highest rates in the world. And dollarization? It's still just a proposal, not yet reality. So why do reforms never stick in Argentina? The short answer is politics. Every time a new administration takes power, it reverses the policies of the last. One side prints and spends, the other cuts and slashes. Then the pendulum swings back. There is no continuity, no long-term planning, and no institutional memory. The central bank has rarely functioned as an independent institution. It's been treated like an ATM, printing pesos to finance government deficits, regardless of the long-term consequences. Even when something does work, like the dollar peg in the 1990s, it only lasts until the next crisis arrives. And when it breaks, as it did in 2001, it breaks hard. At its core, this isn't just an economic issue, it's a crisis of trust. Citizens don't trust the currency, they don't trust the banks, they don't trust politicians to protect their savings or to act in the nation's long-term interest. And when trust disappears, no policy can fix that overnight. So, can Argentina break the cycle? Can it finally escape this economic time loop? It's possible, but it won't happen through dollarization alone, or another bailout, or one radical precedent. Real change would mean overhauling how Argentina governs itself. It would mean establishing credible, independent institutions. It would mean abandoning the habit of using inflation as a hidden tax on the public. And most of all, it would mean restoring the one thing the system has lost: public trust. Because until that happens, we already know what the future looks like. We've seen it 9 times already. And in Argentina, history doesn't just repeat, it inflates. If you found this video insightful, make sure to check out Is Australia Heading for an Economic Crash? In this video, we break down what's really happening to Australia's economy, from slowing GDP and rising cost pressures to the risks of a hidden crisis beneath record immigration and government stimulus. Click the video to watch now.